These are my son's pants, and they need to be made thinner. First, turn them inside out. Pin them in the amount that you want to sew them, making sure that this top layer and the bottom layer are flat. And because he wants them not tighter up here, we're just going to taper this up the leg. Okay, you can see that I repinned this with the pins facing the bottom, and I've pinned it all the way up, tapering it into the seam up here at the top. And the reason I pinned it starting at the bottom and going to the top is because this part is very thick and is going to be difficult to sew, but I want these two edges to be very lined up. And if I started at the top and went down, if I'm feeding it into the sewing machine from the top this way, then I want to be able to pull my pins out as I go and pull my pins towards me. So that's why we face the pins towards the hem. Now that we have it pinned, now we are going to sew. When you're sewing something very thick, like this denim, first of all the fabric is really thick, and then also we're sewing probably 6 layers of fabric in this hem. You know, it's doubled over and then doubled over again. So you need to adjust for that with your feed dogs. Your feed dogs are going to, if we just place this directly under here, my feed dogs would not grasp it right because pressure on the presser foot pressing down is not even because the back is just on air. So this little device has 3 different layers, and so you can use 3 different heights depending on how thick your fabric. Now denim, this is probably the thickest fabric that you would ever sew outside of maybe a tent. So anyway, so place your fabric under your presser foot where you're going to sew, and then place this behind so that we can get it so that the presser foot is straight. And that might be a little high. I might go down to just 2 of these. Now my presser foot is parallel to the base of the sewing machine. It's not tilted up or down. I'm actually going to sew backwards just a few stitches to get it started, and then sew forwards. Stopping, and now this is out because it just naturally goes to the back as the feed dogs pass it through. And like I said, since I place my needles or my pins going this way, it's very easy for me to pull them out as I go. And you just sew. Now you're going to merge this in with the natural seam that's already there. So you need to make sure that you are bringing this angle in a very gradual angle, so that it will be correct there, so it won't make a little pucker at the end. And then do a few back stitches to hold it. Alright, after you have sewn your first seam up, tapered it up into the leg, then you need to trim away this bulk. Now if these were something that you may want to in the future take out, like if you thought this person was going to grow for a child or something, then you might leave this bulk and then you could just rip out your seam again and reuse it. But because the styles of pants are changing, we're probably not going to need to do that with these pants. So we're just going to trim away all this bulk so that when the person wears the pants, they will not be that uncomfortable. And we edge finish things in order to keep them from fraying. And if this were washed, this would fray out. Eventually the seam would come out, but if you're planning on keeping these for a long time, you want to edge finish them so that the seams don't fall out. Also, it's uncomfortable to have all those frays in there. Now there's several ways you can edge finish. Even if you have a straight stitch sewing machine, you can edge stitch by just sewing a second seam right along the first one. Another choice, if you have a very simple sewing machine, most sewing machines have a zigzag. Again, we're going to use this to line this up to keep it straight. So if you use a zigzag, set up for that, and you don't have to worry so much about ending your seams. Seam is already taken care of. And these are reverse action stitches. If you're using knits, it's a good idea to use them. And again, I'm just lining it up with that pin as best I can, and it covers the end and it covers the edges. The final step whenever you're sewing anything is the pressing. Pressing will make your garment look much better, look more professional. So anytime you make something, you want to press each seam 3 times. And you don't iron. Ironing is a motion like this. You press down. The first step is to press the seam just as it lays so that the seam can meld together all the way down the leg. And then the best thing is to let that cool for a minute so that it presses flat. The next step is to turn the item inside out so you can press from the outside all the way up to the point there where you sewed. Is to press the seams to one side or the other, since that's the way they were done before. It just makes the fabric lay flat. And then the last step is to try them on and fit them.